Tech Gumbo on Talk 107.3 FM WBRP, Baton Rouge's local talk and information leader for the whole hour. It is technical information, computing, and consumer technology, and enterprise and business technology.
Well, it's technology that's fun.
Yeah, well, let's hope that everything we talk about is remotely interesting, especially when we're delving into something as fun as the redshtick.com. Jeremy White has been the editor, founder, intellectual heart. You and Edie together have put this magazine out for a long time. It's Baton Rouge's own humor magazines. Where others tried, they succeeded because I guess you were just tenacious about it.
Yeah, I guess so. We'll go with that.
Okay.
So, Jeremy, how long have you been doing Red Shtick?
We launched Red Shtick Magazine. First issue was February of 2004.
Wow.
We put it out the same weekend as the Spanish Town Parade that year. Figured if we're going to launch a satirical publication in Baton Rouge, let's do it on the weekend when
the most irreverent weekend.
Really the only time when you're allowed to just be, all out satirical and irreverent, Spanish Town. So,
and even that rubs people the wrong way.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, sense of humor has sometimes been very subversive around these parts.
Exactly.
My wife and I went a decade without being able to go to the Spanish Town because the first time our oldest son said, "Mom, what does that mean?" we stopped going.
See, and you're smart. You realize, okay, well, let's go ahead and just not bring the kids.
Absolutely.
You got people who bring the kids, and then they complain about the parade. It's like, no, you know doggone well what the parade's about. Either you explain it to the kids, or you tell your kids, we're not going because I don't want to explain this stuff to you.
Right. Just be a responsible parent. Know what's going on.
Yeah.
But you get a lot of these, I don't want to have tos.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to. I live in Baton Rouge. I don't want to have to think.
Right.
Right.
Period.
So we launched that same weekend in 2004. We had been doing some stand-up downtown and developed a nice, robust stand-up comedy scene. And we said, well, let's go ahead and let's write a publication written by comedians.
And y'all were once a month?
We started, actually, the first few editions were bi-weekly. And that was just way too much work. So we backed it down to once a month. And so we did that for 8.5 years. And the problem with, we'll get into it more, but it's hard to be responsive. You got it out there for a month. Your story better have legs, and people better be interested in it, weeks after you write it. So
yeah,
that's one of the drawbacks. And then something may come up, and you want to write about it. Well, you got to wait till the next edition. And by then, it may have passed. So,
so you make the decision. You're going to go digital. Now, did you still do the website and the magazine?
The magazine, when we had a website with the magazine, Red Shtick Magazine, it was mainly just for archives. It wasn't really active out there. It was just so people can go back and look up, I remember that article about LSU football or UEP Long or whatever, and I can go look it up. But it wasn't really out there. People pretty much just relied on the print version, and they knew where they could go pick it up or whatever, and they could get it.
Then something happened. The blog revolution.
Yeah. We saw more and more stuff coming down, and more people in Baton Rouge getting more tech savvy, smartphones coming out. And so it's like, okay, well, let's see about just going strictly digital. And so we changed our name from the Red Shtick Magazine to the Red Shtick, because we were no longer a magazine. We're just, the redshtick.com. And so we went strictly digital. And so that was in summer of 2012. So we like to call the Red Shtick the digital offspring, or some of us like to call it the bastard child.
I was about to say bastard stepchild
of Red Shtick Magazine. And
did you get much of a pushback when you went?
A little bit. We still have people come up and say, I don't see you on the stands anymore. And it's like, because we haven't printed in almost 3 years. The best, though, when you have people
Those are the people with Netscape.
Yeah.
Right.
Or even better, you have people, and I know people in television who haven't been on television doing news in years. Like our friend Avery Davidson. They'll come up and say, I watch you on TV all the time, and I pick you up at the newsstand over at Brewbacher's all the time. Like, no, you don't. No, you don't.
I was on WBRZ for about 6 years, from the late 90s up to 2004, and still I have people come up and say, man, I love watching you on TuneIn. And I haven't been on since October of 2004.
Yeah.
And of course, I've stopped doing my on-air shift. Mm-hmm. And
I'll listen to you all the time.
All the time. Well, let me know when you are, because you're probably standing outside my home, and I'll be quiet so you don't have to hear anything.
So tell us a little bit
Holy
about,
cow.
what are some of the things that you can do with digital that you could never do with print?
Well, we can be a lot more responsive, like I alluded to earlier. If something comes up, like, say, a story comes out, as it did a few weeks ago, that Governor Jindal is rated by this guy, that he's a fourth-tier Republican candidate. We had something out that afternoon kind of making fun of that. We had a little Your Voices, man on the street kind of reaction thing. So, we can turn stuff around and get stuff out there rather quickly to respond to stories that warrant lampooning or trending topics and that kind of thing. So we can do that. We have podcasts. We'd always talked about doing podcasts because some of the folks who write for us used to do stand-up. Some still do stand-up. But even when we had stand-up and the magazine, you had some people that were better on stand-up, some that were better in writing, some that could do both. You had a few that could do both. So now we have people who can write and are funny in print online, but you have people who are funny just talking, and so you have the spoken word. And so we have a weekly podcast. The Red Shtick Podcast has been around for 2.5 years now, and it's me and usually Sonny Weathers, who used to do stand-up. One of the funniest guys you'll ever meet.
Definitely.
And we'll rotate. We'll have Nick Moore. We had Nick Moore on for a long time as the third guest, but he's got his own podcast now. We have 3 podcasts on the Red Shtick family of podcasts. We have the original Red Shtick Podcast. We have Nick Moore and James Brown with Dork, D-O-R-Q-U-E. A lot of geeky dork. Yeah. And we also have the Family Dinner Podcast. The Family Dinner is a local improv troupe, the premier improv troupe, and they perform regularly at the Manship Theater in the Hartley Vay, doing spoof nights and improv shows. And they come on Fridays, and usually on most Fridays they have a podcast. So we have 3 podcasts that put out every week, and so people can subscribe on iTunes and Stitcher and listen to it, and in addition to reading stuff on the Red Shtick. We'll bring on local comics, and we've had different personalities on there. It gives us a chance. We had the Lieutenant Governor Jay Darden. We've had Metro Councilman.
Jay is funny.
He's great.
He's really funny. If you've not heard a chance to hear him, he's hysterical.
We've had Councilman John Delgado on a couple of times. We're talking to Attorney General Buddy Caldwell about coming on, maybe do an Elvis impersonation.
I was about to say some singing.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of my favorite things you've got going right now is the letters from the front.
Oh, the War for St. George.
The War for St. George. That I've just enjoyed that so much.
Yeah, the War for St. George. We came up with the idea, and we have the graphics, and it's basically a letter from each side, as though it was like a Ken Burns documentary on PBS, like the Civil War. And we have a letter from each side in each installment. And people, it's been pretty well received. We try to use that antiquated language and everything.
I knocked on doors today. Mm-hmm. There was a woman across the street who wasn't quite receptive, but I did my best to get her to sign the petition. Mm-hmm. I even faked a couple of names or two.
Yeah.
Joe Smith, 1862. Yeah.
So we have that. We also have the ability to go viral. We couldn't really do that with the magazine. We still have a Baton Rouge and South Louisiana focus online. So majority of our users and readers are South Louisiana people. But before, the only way people outside of Baton Rouge would ever get a copy would be if they got it mailed to them, subscribed, or were just passing through town and picked up a copy. But now we'll occasionally have articles that may go viral, like the one we had a couple of months ago about attributing a quote to Governor Jindal concerning the closing of the ER at Mid-City Baton Rouge General. And it fooled the former spokesperson of the Democratic National Committee. And he tweeted it and was corrected by the governor's chief of staff. and
You
it's
got to love
great.
that.
Yeah. So
did you teach yourself all of this technology? Do you have somebody who's doing most
no,
of it for you?
that's me. I learned it's WordPress, and WordPress is great. There's a lot of resources out there, a lot of forums, and the people in the forums are very helpful too, for the most part. The people who they code the plugins, and so if you run into an issue, you can put the question out there, and usually get an answer within a day or two. And
See,
if you
I
can
asked
do
the
a-
question
yeah.
because a lot of people think, "Oh, I could never do that. That's so hard. That's so." I'm not. You taught yourself.
Yeah, if you're willing, if you're willing to not be afraid and just go and learn, and you're going to make a few mistakes, but be willing to put it out there, put a question out there, and look for the answer, and be patient for a day or two for people to respond. You're going to get the answer to your question more or less.
You got time to stick around for the last segment?
Sure.
Great.
And, of course, we're giving away
Microsoft Office Professional 2013. Go to facebook.com/GulfSouthTech and put in the keyword Fitbit. And that way we'll draw a name of all those who register, and we'll contact you from the Facebook and give you a copy of a $400 version of Office Professional.
the full Megillah.
The full Megillah. It
Yes.
is so aptly named on this show.
I don't know where that came from. All right, more with Jeremy White from theredshtick.com here on Tech Gumbo, Talk 107.3 FM WBRP, coming up.